Good morning, everybody. I'm Nicola Barrett, the Chief Corporate Learning Officer at Emory University's Goizueta Business School, and welcome to Business Over Breakfast. So glad that you can join us to explore what is an increasingly relevant aspect of leadership, which is transforming good teams into high-performance powerhouses. I feel like this is I'm having deja vu because this was a conversation we had yesterday. We just celebrated Labor Day, which is a time to recognize the contributions of workers and the power of collaboration. So it's a fitting moment to reflect on what it takes to build resilient, high-performing teams that drive results. And high-performing teams don't just happen. They're strategically built, nurtured, and cultivated by skilled managers and leaders. We've all worked on teams that struggled to collaborate, lacked clarity, or didn't reach their full potential. And this session is designed to help us understand what makes teams thrive and how we as leaders and team managers can foster environments that really drive high performance and engagement. Our faculty guide for today is Natasha Ganem, affiliate faculty at Goizueta Business School and the founder of Lion Leadership. Natasha specializes in organizational development and employee engagement and employs the lens of social psychology plus practical real-world experience to teach management, leadership, and communications at both the graduate level and for working professionals. Today, as normal, as we usually do on Business Over Breakfast, Natasha's going to spend about the first 35 minutes sharing some insights on the topic, followed by a Q&A. Please, as usual, post any questions in the Q&A and also in the chat, and we'll get to as many of those as we can in our time today. And if you're intrigued by what Natasha has to say, and if communications is an area of interest for you, and I would challenge everybody in business, communications is a critical area of expertise and skill these days. Please consider extending your time learning with Natasha, who is one of the faculty teaching in our upcoming Executive Communication and Leadership Presence course that starts on October the 8th. Also, I invite you to check out the lineup of our other short courses that we will post into the chat. Natasha, thank you for your time today and for sharing your insights. Over to you.
Thank you so much for inviting me to speak to this group of professionals. It's always so refreshing to me to be in a room, even a Zoom room, with people who have a desire to learn, to grow, to make a better work environment for the people around them. The one thing that does break my heart is when I'm working with someone who has a case of the I want to quits. I really want everyone to love their work and to derive as much satisfaction from it as possible. And that's a lot easier when you're working with a great team versus an average team or a poor team. Question for you guys before I even dive into content today, I would love for you to put into the chat for me, what is your biggest frustration or tension point, pain point as a leader, as a manager, as a team builder? What is the hardest thing for you to do to make your team great? Where do you feel like you're stuck? Keeping them motivated, holding them accountable, motivating the slackers, leading by example, providing clarity, getting them to take ownership, solution-driven mindset. Yes. The hybrid work environment, yes. People having to be reminded to do work on time. Change management, oh my goodness, yes. Change. Oh, a bully in the group. Okay, let's get into that at some point before we end our session. I think what you're experiencing as you're seeing your peers' comments roll into the chat is that we're all in good company. Like, leading teams is not a skill we're born with. It is a skill that is taught, modeled, practiced, and developed over time. So today, hopefully, we're going to get you moving, feeling more confident that you can lead with confidence. I'm going to start with the very basics, the very, very basics. Humans, for the most part, are driven by their desire to belong and to matter. Okay. This is why so many people, all of us, spend so much of our lives trying to find our purpose. We want to know what it is that we can enjoy, that we can excel at, and what we can use to contribute to others in a meaningful way. So at work, this becomes one of our most important jobs as a leader, is to make sure our people can have this sensation, to feel like they belong and that their work matters. Yet to do that, we have a taller order, which is to make it, in fact, true. We cannot make people feel like they belong and that their work matters if that is not true. So our job as a team lead is to make sure that is the case. Building the foundation of powerhouse teams is as simple and as complex as that. Now, today I'm going to give you some guidance on how to effectively do this. I'm going to explain why these strategies work so that you can understand the gravity and the urgency of following through on them. Yet here I'm just talking about the structural foundation of teams. We also have a symbolic lens that we have to work through. We also have a skills and talent layer that we have to fold in and attend to. And then we have the layer of semantics, which is how we communicate all the things with team members to keep them engaged, performing, and working well together. So don't worry, even in 30 short minutes, we will touch on all of it. Let me start with building the structural foundation of high-performing teams. To do this, I want you to look at this picture, and I want you to imagine that I grab 10 people off the street and I put them in these chairs. Is this a team? No, this is just 10 people sitting in chairs. Social psychologists would tell you that those 10 people sitting in the chairs not only isn't just a team, they're not even a group. They're just 10 people sitting in chairs. In order for them to be a team, they have to have these 6 characteristics. They have to have a shared purpose. Their work must be interdependent. They need clear roles and norms. They need systems for mutual accountability. They need a sense of cohesion and belonging, and they also need boundaries and stability. Let's take these 10 people and label them with letters. This is my initial 10 people in a room. That's not a team. If we take these people and we give them a shared purpose, say a mission, a vision, a goal that they are all going to pour into together to achieve, we're starting to get the formation of a real team. So check, right? If we add to that a structure where we know who reports to who, we know who's responsible for what, everyone is very clear on what their role is. That means a clear job description, a clear organizational chart that's transparent that everyone is familiar with. We're getting even closer to the semblance of a team. This is why consultants come into organizations and they stress so heavily mission, 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 org chart, org chart, org chart, clear job descriptions, clear roles. In my practice, I find a lot of clients do a little bit of an eye roll when they get to this. They're like, yeah. I say, hey, what is the mission of your company? They say, hang on, let me go check the website. And I say, okay, we're going to start here. If I walk into your office and I grab anybody, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and I ask, what is the mission of your company? What is the purpose of your department? And what exactly do you own in terms of your role? What are you specifically responsible for? And they cannot answer those three questions. We've got a big problem. I'm pausing. Is there an echo? Is that just Ken or is that everybody else? Is that something that needs correction?
Natasha, I'm not hearing an echo.
Okay.
So I think, I'm sorry, Ken, it may just be you and your technology. Hope it's not too disturbing.
Okay. So bringing us back to this picture, this image we're looking at, we've got people in shadow boxes. Imagine what if person B doesn't know the mission that everyone is working towards, or the purpose, the real purpose of their department and how their department fits into the mission of the company. What if B doesn't really know their role? We are already getting some team dysfunction. We can take J. Let's say J knows exactly the mission. He knows exactly the purpose of the department. He knows exactly his role. Okay, this is good. But what if J doesn't know what E and G and F are doing? Yeah, we're starting to get some dysfunction. It has to be clear. It has to be crystal clear. And I'm going to share with you a case study. To do this, I'm going to share a different part of my screen. So bear with me as I pause the share and pull up a different document. Can we see this?
If it's go kayaks,
It's
yes.
Go Kayaks. We are looking at a strategic plan. All right. This is technically a trifold brochure. It sits on the desk of everyone at the company. In this trifold brochure, you just looked at the cover. And the inside flap is their framing statement, which is their mission statement. We sell kayaks to families looking for a new adventure because families that adventure together stay together. Okay, we know what we're doing. We're in the business to sell kayaks. We have values and we have strategic goals. We're going to open 3 more locations. We're going to become noted for customer experience. We're going to target new populations, create new products. We're going to sign 2 franchisees and we're going to give back to families. Now, I want you to think about that org structure. Their org structure is set up to where everyone in a shadow box knows exactly what strategic goal they own and exactly what action they're supposed to take within it. This is what we call an aligned organization. Stop the share and go back to my PowerPoint. This is the structural foundation of any solid team. Nicola?
Natasha, we're seeing your
I
slides
see.
on the
Yep,
side.
here we
So
go.
yeah. We also had a question from Bryant saying, at some level, technology has blurred the exact delineation of roles. And do you think the learning versus the performance expectations across functional areas is something that warrants further consideration?
I could be taking this question from the wrong angle, so Bryant, tell me if I am. But to me, what is happening, which I see in all of my companies, is a apathetic, lackadaisical approach to updating job descriptions and to having annual, if not biannual, conversations about job descriptions, about roles, about who owns what, and who is ultimately responsible for what. Things do move quickly. So when I see an organization, even Kayaks, they've got a 3-year strategic plan. Things are moving fast. People are coming and going. Technology is changing what's possible within job roles. They're not pulling out those job descriptions with their team and looking at it openly and having real conversations about it. They're doing that annual performance review process where everyone just kind of says, oh, it's not that important and we don't update it. And that shakes up the foundation of your team. It's almost as if we're running a football team and we're trying to go for the win, right? It's like not giving every player on the team the playbook or the updated playbook. Some people have it, some people don't, some people have an old version of it. It's not going to work. The structural foundation is not there. Okay, Bryant says right. Okay, good. I'm glad I got it from the right angle. Thank you. Again, I hear people in the audience, even though I can't hear you, but the eye roll is there. But this is why people like me come in and say mission, mission, mission. You have to know what it is. Org chart, org chart, org chart, and job description, job description, job description. And everyone has to be on the same page, knowing who's playing what part. Now, that's the structural frame of a powerhouse team. Let me talk about the symbolic lens that us leaders also need to tend to.
Natasha, before you go there,
Mhm.
there's a question in the Q&A that I think is really relevant to what you were just talking about. So I wanted to interrupt you. With very clear roles, how do you prevent the "it's not my job" sentiment?
Whose job is it? That's a real question. That actually makes me think of the comment that was in the chat about an ownership mindset.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that indicates a lack of um, communication, reification of what the company mission is, and that we're all in it together. So we will get down into the weeds and we will say, this isn't my job. But if our collective mission is to achieve this, we are all responsible for that.
I love that answer. I'm going to use that.
And I will say a good way to protect yourself from getting team members who have that mindset is to hire on values, right? If the values of the company illustrate a team member who is going to be mission focused and collaborative and celebrate success as a team, then if you have someone that doesn't exemplify those values, you can fire on those values because they're not bringing a very important piece to the table. Extreme Ownership is a great book. I will come back to this point in a minute. So again, coming back, we're thinking about ourselves as leaders. My questions to you for the structural foundation is, are you communicating mission over and over and over again? Do you come back to it at every weekly meeting, right? Are you reviewing job duties and roles and updating job descriptions? Are you creating an environment where everybody knows how they fit together, exactly what they own, that's a part of the strategic plan that's going to get your organization or your department to achieve its goals or mission? You as a leader, we forget this. We are responsible for wrapping language around that and driving that into our individual team members so that we can be a team. Another aspect of team building that leaders often don't think about is this symbolic layer. I'm going to go to this picture. You see that little dotted line around my org chart? I want to firm that up. And when we talk in social psychology language, it's just so interesting. So teams, if you think about it, this is what's so fascinating to me. I cannot go to the grocery store and buy a team. I can't pick a team off a shelf, hold it underneath a microscope like I could a blood cell. A team is a social construct. It's a word that we assign to something we can't really touch and we can't really feel it. Yet, they're indicators that it's there. Looking at this slide, how do we really define our teams? Well, we give ourselves a logo, right? We dress our staff members in, promotional like logo shirts. We have swag right? We have all sorts of promotional items. We got pens, we got notebooks, we got Yeti cups, we got jackets, we got pullovers, we got signs on the wall. This is not fluff. This is how we identify that we are not just a group, we are a team, we are different than other people. It's this symbolism that helps organizations and the people within them understand that we are we and they are them, right? Rituals come into this. I have a company, they sell cars. And when they have a new team member, a new salesperson, when that person sells their first car, you know what they do? They cut their tie. And it's like, wait a minute, that was an expensive tie. I don't want my tie to be cut. But it's part of being in the team. When you get your tie cut, it's a big deal. Another example, there's a nonprofit organization here in Athens called Extra Special People. They employ adults with disabilities. They work as baristas, but they call them joyristas because they're spreading joy. And when you finish your joyrista training, you switch from a brown apron with your name on it, or a brown apron without your name on it, to a white apron with your name embroidered on it and the logo. You get business cards, and it's a big deal. It's symbolic that this person is now a part of the team. They belong and they matter. And this is how we symbolize it. To continue firming up boundaries on teams, we have to have shared experiences, and not just shared experiences and events that go into our collective memory. We have to have shared emotional experiences. So when we have high stakes deadlines and the team comes together and they're working frantically to get it done, and then there's a down period, that high of the emotion and that low of an emotion, everyone feels together and they start to get more and more bonded. They get more and more cohesive. But without those experiences, without those emotions, without those shared memories, we don't have a team. We might be getting to a group, but we don't have a team. If you ever wondered why teams go to offsite retreats in different places, that's a shared memory. When teams do icebreakers and team building exercises, sometimes they're cringy, believe me, because I have to do them, and even I cringe. But the cringe is why they're effective. Because everyone remembers that silly nickname Natasha got because of the game we had to play for team building. This is why executive teams go to race car parks or high ropes, because it elevates your emotion. And when emotions are elevated and de-elevated together, we're bonding a team. Again, a team, you can't put it under a microscope. It's a word we sign to a social construct. And to create that social construct, there is a serious symbolic element to it that I find leaders often forget about. Quickly in the chat, how are you tending to the symbolic needs of your team? Is there a ritual in your team that you're proud to share? While you type that in, I'm switching to this slide. Case study, green jacket. I don't think anything else more is needed here. That green jacket symbolizes a lot for all of my golf fans out there. Check-in and check-outs in our group meetings. Wear a team shirt. A goat vote. I love it. It's catchy. Okay. There's a lot of room for creativity here. When I work with clients, I often hear them say, like, I'm too busy for this, or I'm not creative like this. I'm not the fun one. And I have good news. You don't have to be, but you have to find the fun one and the creative one and delegate this to them. It is this symbolic layer for a powerhouse team. And without it, you're not going to have one. The next layer that we have to consider as leaders is the skills layer. There's two types of skills we have to consider to build a powerhouse team. One, we have to make sure that everybody on our team has the hard talent to do the role they've been assigned. It is simple and as complex as that. But we also have to make sure that every single person on our team has the social aptitude to get along and trust each other. That's a different type of skill set. Okay. It doesn't come naturally. It is something that is taught and developed and nurtured. This is a quote from Stephen Covey. He's written a book called The Speed of Trust, the one thing that changes everything. And he says, trust is equal parts character and competence. I'm going to draw a hard line and give you a little bit of tough love. But if you're here trying to figure out how to build a powerhouse team, the highest performing team you can, and you have a team player that you don't trust because you don't trust their competence to do what they're assigned to do, or you don't trust their character, you feel they're ill-intended, you will not have a strong team. You have to correct the situation to get a strong team. Yes, if you have to fire them, fire them. If you have to train them, train them. If you have to coach them, coach them. If you need to get them a mentor, get them a mentor. If you have to have a hard conversation with them to tell them exactly what's going well and what's going wrong, if you have to talk to them about their strengths and weaknesses, if you have to move them into a different seat, you have to do what you have to do to make this be the case. Again, back to the beginning. People want to belong and they want to matter. People who are not competent in their job, competent with their social skills, and have poor character are going to make everyone else on the team feel as though they don't belong and they don't matter. So managers often say, well, I can't build a high performing team because I don't have the talent. No, we have to take that finger and point it right back at ourselves. We're responsible for that talent. Either we're going to level up that talent or we're going to exit that person and get the talent in. I've got some tools to share. Specifically, when you're thinking about your team members and the roles they play, I've got two different assessments, and I would encourage you to take each of your team members, and for those of you who have 50, I apologize, but ask yourself, with every single person on your team, do they get it? Do they want it? Do they have the capacity to do it? Do they get it? Do they want it? Do they have capacity to do it? And if you say no to any of these, we've got to stop and do something. Not complain about it, not be a victim about it. It's our job to do something. Yes, this is from EOS. It's a tool from EOS. Another tool that's helpful is a 9-box. And you can get this from a couple of different places. It's worded a little bit differently everywhere you go. But you take every person on your team and you assess them. How is their performance? And how is their potential? Where are they on this 9-box? They might be a core employee right in the middle, and that might be fine. That might be exactly what you need. If you're going to build a high-performing team, not everybody needs to be a future leader. Not everybody needs to be a rock star, but you can't have an underperformer. And you can't have someone who's ineffective. And you can't have what we call the dilemma. They need your attention, and your team will not turn from good to great until you do something about it as a manager. Now, this is about hard skills for the role that they're assigned. Everyone on your team also needs to be assessed for their social skills. If they do not have the emotional intelligence, social intelligence, and ability to nurture, create, maintain, sustain a psychologically safe environment, something has to be done. And it has to be done by the team lead. It has to be addressed. Again, people want to know they belong and that they matter. And when you have a toxic rock star that creates an environment where anyone else on the team doesn't feel this way and does not feel psychologically safe, which is defined by the slide, you can look through the words, we have a problem. These are the obstacles to high performing teams. Another example, when you're assessing your team members for these social skills, this is maybe nuanced, but it's a strategy that's one of my favorites. I want to make sure everyone that I'm working with has the skill to understand the difference between intention and impact, right? I like to assume everybody is working with good intention. So when I experience a negative impact from a colleague, I need to be able to go to them and say, was this your intention? And they need to be able to tell me the difference between what they intended and what their impact was. When we have negative intention and we have negative impact, we've got someone who has a social skill problem that's not going to help us build the team we want. And something has to be done. Nicola?
Yeah, Natasha, I got a question for you that's pertinent to this conversation. What happens if a team member, so we're talking about where a team is formed across different groups, right? So more and more we're trying to have people work outside of their silos and in mixed teams. What if the team member that you're talking about isn't one of your direct reports? You know, that
Such
team member's the bully, or that team member's causing unrest or lack of social awareness.
That's such a great question. So now we're talking about leading without having direct power or authority. So, working through the org chart, you can always, go to their supervisor, say, this is the situation, this is what's happening, this is the impact it's having on my team. I need to ask that you help me find a solve because it's having this domino ripple effect and I'm not going to tolerate it. But the thing is, the only way you can do that is if you have already built trust with that other person. How many drops have you put in their bucket so that you can go cash in, right? If you have not nurtured that relationship, it's going to be hard to make an ask, though you can. Hey, I know we haven't worked that closely together. I know that this is a new dynamic in our organization. I want it to go well. My intention is to come to you in hopes that we can collaborate and find a way to make sure this is successful and that all team members are comfortable working across departments. I see a small problem and I want to talk about it before it becomes a big problem. One of my favorite word pictures for this is what I call the baby elephant. We all know what an elephant in the room is, right? As leaders, we have to get very aggressive about naming baby elephants, patting them on the head, and walking them out the door. Because if we don't get aggressive with those baby elephants, they grow into big granddaddy elephants. And we have team dysfunction. And now we're talking about cross team dysfunction. I think that gets at, we can come back to this at the Q&A at the end. That's a really good point. In fact, I'm going to make a point about trust, and then I'm going to land the plane about having these types of conversations. This is the thing about trust. It's character, it's competence. Your job as a leader is to make sure everybody around you has it, to demand it, to tolerate nothing less, and that everybody within your team feels the same way about each other. The person historically who has made the best point about this is Pat Lencioni, old book, Five Dysfunctions of Team. And the main argument in this book is if you don't trust one another, you won't be able to engage in healthy conflict and share all the ideas that are in the room. And if you can't voice all the ideas that are in the room and get everybody's opinions out there in the open and understand a situation from everybody's viewpoints, you will never be able to truly commit to making a decision or achieving a goal in a certain way, which means you'll never be aligned. And if you're not aligned and you're not committed, you can't hold each other accountable. And if you can't hold each other accountable, you can't get the results you're looking for. So the basis of all team functioning is trust. And I find it is the one thing that managers, leaders, team builders skirt around the most. They love to admire the problem that they have someone who's not doing their job up to the level they want them to. They're admiring the problem that this person's impact on this other team member was negative, but we don't really want to get in the middle of that. You have to. Let me talk for a few minutes about semantics and we'll open it up to Q&A. I think we all know who this is. If anyone knows something about communication, it would be Oprah. And she says, great communication begins with connection. We have to be connected. We have to have a shared purpose. We have to have interdependence. We have to have clear roles, mutual accountability, cohesion, boundaries, everything we've talked about. But we have to be able to wrap language around it. What's hard is, as a leader, we have to wrap language around it in a certain kind of way. We all know the managers that are running around with their hair on fire. Their cortisol levels are through the roof. Their emotional vibe is stressing everyone out. Sometimes that's warranted. Sometimes the culture of the organization calls for that. That elevated emotion can really bind a team together. But sometimes it's not. As a leader, we have to hone our communication and we have to be able to do that, but we also have to be able to do all these other things. We have to showcase through our language and our semantics that we're respectful, that we're empathetic, that we're authentic, that we're accessible. We have to be clear. We have to be confident. I find a lot of leaders aren't confident in their ability to wrap language around things that are very important. In fact, when I was preparing for this talk and I was thinking about what really holds good teams back from becoming great, I think it's the leader who starts with semantics. Because we're just not good at it. If we're going to talk our way into having a great team, it's not going to work. We're just not good at toning out the cognitive and emotional noise that comes from day-to-day interaction. But what makes that noise go down is having your structural foundation set, having a really strong symbolic layer, making sure you've tended to the skills, the hard skills, the soft skills of everyone on your team, and then semantics become easy. I'm going to share with you one last tool, because to do this, to build this powerhouse team we're talking about, to take action on everything that I've been putting on the table for you to consider, you're going to have some uncomfortable, high stakes conversations. And this goes back, Nicola, to the question that just came in. I'm trying to lead without direct authority. Well, people are not mind readers. And sometimes other people don't see the baby elephant you see. So semantics are important. They're going to come into play. You're going to have to approach someone, describe the situation that's bothering you, describe a behavior that's bothering you, describe the bothersome impact that it's having. What I like mostly to do at this point is to stop talking. And I teach this in all of my communication classes. And I'm laughing because I'm sure the host on the panel here have seen me do this. But it's likely one day you're going to have to look at a junior employee and say, hey, Susan, this is a really hard conversation for me to have with you, because I don't, in any way, shape, or form, want to demoralize you or make you think you're not doing a fine job here. But I wouldn't be doing my job as your manager if I didn't tell you a few things that I've been observing. I've noticed that, while the team is kind of staying late, trying to get this accomplished, you're dipping out early. Your nonverbals show us that you're disengaging and you're shutting down, and maybe you don't care about this work as much as everybody else. And in your presentation last Thursday to XYZ client, I got to tell you, I expected something more powerful from you. To me, the delivery didn't reach the outcome I had hoped. I need to know what's going on with you, and we need to come up with a way for you to level up your performance. Your reputation on this team is important to me, and I'm not going to let it slide. Let's talk about what to do next. And that's where I stop talking. And I call it the blink blink. And what I'm doing is I'm taking all that emotional energy and weight this team member has put on my shoulders because they're not quite right and they're causing a problem with my other team players. I've taken all that emotional burden and I put it on her shoulders. And now my job is to sit there and watch her hold it. And this is hard. This is hard for somebody who cares about others, who wants to protect them from hard things. Now, Susan might get really defensive, and that's okay. I'll hold space for her to do that. But I'm going to repeat myself until she figures it out on her own that indeed I am coming at this with the best of intention and that I do believe we can find a solve for it. And then I'm going to hold space for her as she figures out what she's going to do. And then we will see. If we have to revisit the conversation again, it might be another hard conversation, but I'm going to come into it with this is the situation, this is the behavior, this was the impact. Let's talk about that. One last slide, just to wrap things up. Many of you are probably familiar with the Gallup 12. This comes from a book called It's the Manager, which I tell you, well, the book It's the Manager was published a number of years ago. And when it was published, I was like, finally, someone wrote the book that needed to be written. Teams will be powerhouse teams if there's a powerhouse manager that does all these things they're supposed to do. Most managers, most leaders don't know they're supposed to do all these things. And then when they do know they're supposed to do all these things, they struggle to find the time, or they're not really sure how to, or they have to practice it and get better at it. But for the ones who knock it out of the park, they build self-sustaining teams, they build powerhouse teams, and they're very much respected. Now, not everyone might like them, but everyone will respect them. This tool is a survey that assesses employee engagement. Now, that does not equate to a high-performing team, but having team members that are highly engaged gets us really close. And I want you to look at these questions, and I want you to think about what we've been talking about. The structural foundation, the symbolic layer, skill levels, semantics. Here we have it. I know what's expected of me at work. I have the material and equipment I need to do my work right. I have the opportunity to do my best, right? We want to belong and we want to matter. I've received recognition. Someone cares about me. There's someone who encourages my development. My opinions count. The mission of my company makes my job feel important. My associates are committed to doing high quality work. I have a best friend at work. Someone's talking to me about my progress, and I have opportunities to learn and grow. I'm going to stop there and open it up for Q&A. But my hope and my expectation is that through our time this morning, you've come to understand the role of a leader and the role of a team builder in a new light. Maybe you've learned some new skills. Maybe you've gotten some new tools. Maybe you are thinking about this in a new way that's going to be effective. I will challenge all of you in the Zoom room before you leave to think of 2 actions you are committed to taking that's going to level up your team next. I'm going to stop my share and open up for questions.
Thanks, Natasha. Lots and lots to think about, and we have a number of questions. Gary asked, going back to structure, Gary asked, in the structure that you displayed, how are decisions made and who is held accountable for the final decision? How do you go about determining that?
Decisions in terms of how the structure is designed, or decisions in terms of who has what role?
I believe how decisions themselves are made is part of that team.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's
within that team.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So if you are going to be, if you're going to lead a team and you are going to be the one making all of the decisions for whatever reason you might have to do that, that norm has to be communicated. The final decision rests with me. And you need to communicate how you're going to come up with that decision. Hey, I'm happy to listen to everyone's opinion, but at the end of the day, this is my decision. Or it can be something else. I'm going to listen to everyone's opinion. At the end of the day, David, it's your decision. But we're going to get all the opinions on the table. Showing the process of decision making and being transparent about it and being consistent with it is the real chore at hand, as opposed to, is it top down? Is it bottom up? It's making sure everyone knows the norm and that it's consistently subscribed to. Does that help?
I think so. Thank you. Robert asks, leaders often have a vision in their head that produces an overly broad mission and are not willing to acknowledge that it's a weak mission statement. How can team members work to get the mission restated as a meaningful statement? And I know this is hard work.
That's a really good question. Now, I don't think if we're in a 3,000 person organization that a department of 15, in South America is going to be able to change a mission statement that started in Canada. But what you can do as a team lead is you can set up time for your team to really have a conversation about it. This is technically the organization's mission. What does that mean to you? One exercise I like to do when I'm working with teams doing this, do you see this right here? These are, and you can get these or you can email me and I can get you some. But these are like picture cards, and I spread them out on the desk and I say things like, I'll ask questions like, how is working here meaningful to you? Pick a card that shows why you love working here, or pick a card about how it feels to be a part of this mission. And when each team member goes around the room and shares their stories and shares their why of why they enjoy working for the company, or what they personally believe is compelling about the poor mission statement, even though it's not written in a certain kind of way, that bonds the team together and you can come to a collective understanding of what the mission is that might be more motivating. It might be risky, but you can also say, if you had a magic wand and you could rewrite the mission statement, what would it be? We're not going to do this. We're not pushing it up the chain, but for our team to understand that we're in it to win it together, what is it we're trying to win?
Thank you. Hannah asks, what do you do when the lead is the problem? So I think you talked about the trust, and when you're needing trust, but what happens if the lead is the problem?
That is a great question, and I feel your pain. It breaks my heart, but you're in good company because a lot of people are working for someone whose character or competence they don't trust. So I will say this. First point, nobody sets out in their career to be the world's worst manager. Usually people have worked for a bad manager before and they think when I get into that position, I'm not going to do that. But then they get into that position and power dynamics are real. Again, it's not something I can pull off the shelf at the grocery store and look at underneath a microscope, but leaders feel it when they're in a different title and a different role. And all of a sudden they have a different vantage point and they realize this is harder than I thought. Particularly, we say for leaders, it's lonely at the top because no one will really tell you the truth because they're trying to preserve themselves and their paychecks. And so you're flying blind. So to this question, I would say if you don't trust their competence and you don't trust their character, we need to ask, do we think that's the intention? Do we think they're intentionally being a negative, toxic human? Or do we think they're intentionally failing at their job? Unpacking intention versus impact. And then having smaller SBIs, I think you can do as you manage up. Like, hey, what's a good name? Gary. Hey, Gary. I got to tell you, last week in the meeting with Coca-Cola, and I was going through the slide deck. I know we had met before and you reviewed it and you approved it and you thought it was pretty good. But when I got to this slide on timeline, you interrupted me and asked a question. And I got to say, I really felt like you were disappointed in the work product I'd brought to the table. And if I have no other way to describe it, Gary, it kind of hurt my feelings. Did I do something wrong? Is there something I need to know? Or was that not your intention? It's okay to have your boss answer for themselves if you approach it in a deferential and respectful way. And as long as you've got all those trust droplets already in their bucket, you can always make a cushion.
That's great. Thank you. I think we've got time for one more question. I know we have more than that, so I apologize to everybody. But Shankar asks, from the leadership standpoint, you've communicated the vision, the mission, the goals. How do you test if that's trickled down the organization so you can avoid the feeling of not belonging to the strategic goals in your organization?
So I have a trick for this. So if you're in charge and you have the power to do this, and engage a yearly engagement survey, okay, hang with me here. You can use that not to check the temperature of the employees, but you can use it as a training tool. So for example, if values are, we hold each other, we are accountable to each other, we do it right the first time, we take time when time is needed, and we put the customer first. Say these are your 4 values. You're going to have 4 questions on that engagement survey, and you're going to be asking your people, do you believe that this company does this? Yes or no? Those are going to be the first 4 questions about the mission statement. Do you believe our company is upholding the mission? State the mission, yes or no? Or are you proud to work for this company whose mission is this? Yes or no? So every year they're looking at the mission statement and it becomes a training tool.
That's fabulous. Thank you so much, Natasha, for all of your insights and perspectives and tools. I'm going to rewatch this video when it's posted. This has been, I've forgotten lots of things and I've now learned lots of things. So thank you so much. Kavita, I think you're going to close us out.
Yes, thank you, Nicola. Natasha, thank you for such powerful lessons on leadership. We wish we could keep going. So with that, we're going to just give you some information on our upcoming Business Over Breakfast series. September 18th, we have The Science of Happiness at Work by Jackson Kirchis. And on October 2nd, we have Good Growth, How Brands Win with Social Impact by our very own Goizueta faculty, Omar Rodriguez. Also ahead on featured courses for executive education, we have Negotiation Strategy for Success on September 16th and 18th in person. Executive Communication and Leadership Presence, October 8th and 9th by Natasha Ganem. So we hope to see you there if you enjoyed today's powerful session. And also coming up, Executive Coaching Program in October and another one again in January, Virtuals Your Way. And thank you for joining us this morning. We hope you have a great week.